Have you ever had to choose between saving someone you love and saving yourself? Grace Holloway stood in a hospital hallway. The life of her mother was slipping through her fingers. Her only chance was a contract marriage to a cold billionaire. No romance, no promises, just 1 year, one signature, one impossible trade, her freedom for a future that was not even hers. But what happens when the man behind the deal turns out to be more broken than she imagined, and more human than he dares to admit? Would you walk away once the contract ends, or stay? If your heart no longer knows the difference between pretending and love, this is not just a story about choices. It is about the courage to begin again. When everything inside you says run, let me tell you her story, and maybe you will remember your own. The soft hum of the oxygen machine filled the room with a steady rhythm. Outside, the sky over Seattle was the color of wet concrete. Rain tapped quietly against the windows of the Evergreen Hospice Center. Inside, room 213, Grace Holloway sat still in a hard-back chair. Her father slept under a thin blanket, his breath shallow but steady. James Holloway had once been a man full of life. He built fishing boats with his hands. He told stories that made children laugh and grown men listen. He raised Grace alone after her mother passed. He was the kind of father who could fix a broken sink, a broken heart, or a broken bicycle in the same afternoon. Now he lay so still, his skin pale, his hands cold. Grace held onto one of them gently, as if afraid it might slip away. 6 months earlier, everything had changed. It started with a cough that would not go away. Then came the fatigue, the weight loss, the strange bruises. The diagnosis came fast and brutal. Late-stage cancer. The doctors offered no real hope through traditional treatment. Only an experimental program could offer more time. It combined immunotherapy with targeted radiation. The results were promising, but the price was staggering. $180,000. Not covered by insurance. Not discounted for families like hers. Grace had done everything she could. She sold all of her paintings. She worked long hours at a downtown coffee shop. She emptied her savings and pawned the last piece of jewelry her mother left behind. She applied for grants, filled out endless forms, and made late-night calls to insurance representatives who could offer nothing. And still, it was not enough. Now she sat beside her father's bed, watching him breathe. She felt the weight of helplessness press against her chest like a stone. His eyes fluttered open for a brief moment. He looked at her and smiled the way he always had, even now, when everything hurt. "You look tired," he whispered. Grace shook her head and forced a smile. "I am just thinking," she said. Thinking will wear you down faster than working," he said. Then his eyes drifted shut again. A soft knock at the door made her turn. Elena, one of the night nurses, stepped into the room. She had a kind face and always spoke with a calm voice. "There is something I wanted to tell you," Elena said. "One of the volunteers submitted one of your paintings to a local charity auction. It will be displayed tomorrow night at the Cresswell Gallery. They are raising money for hospice care." Grace blinked. "My painting?" she asked. Elena nodded. "The one with the girl sitting on the dock. Someone saw it. They thought it captured something real." Grace looked down at her father. She felt torn. Her life was here, in this room, but so was her chance, even if it was small. "I will go," she said softly. The next evening, the gallery was warm and bright. Grace stood near the back wall, far from the chatter of the well-dressed guests. She wore a simple black dress that Elena had lent her. It fit well enough, though the heels made her feet ache. Her painting hung quietly near the entrance, a girl sitting alone on a wooden pier. Her feet dangled over still water. The light was fading in the background. A quiet sadness wrapped the scene like fog. Grace watched as people passed by without stopping. They laughed, drank wine, and talked about things she could not understand. She felt invisible. Then a man stopped in front of her painting. He stood tall. His suit was dark and flawless. His face was unreadable. He looked at the painting for a long time. Then, slowly, he turned toward her. Their eyes met. He walked toward her. "You painted that?" he said. It was not a question. "Yes," Grace replied. "I saw it before I saw you." He said, "But now I see both." He paused. "My name is Damian Carrington." The name meant nothing to her at first, but something in his tone told her it should. "I would like to speak with you," he said. "About the painting?" she asked. "No," he said. "About your life." They stepped into a smaller room, off to the side. It was quieter there. A fireplace crackled softly. The air smelled of cedar and wine. He did not sit. He stood near the fireplace and looked at her with a gaze that did not waver. "I know about your father," he said. Grace felt her chest tighten. How she asked. "I read the note beside your painting," Damian said, "and I have a habit of noticing what others overlook." Grace crossed her arms. "I do not need pity," she said. "You do not have it," he replied. "I came here tonight to find something. I did not expect it would be you." She waited. "I need a wife," he said. The room fell silent. A legal wife. 1 year, a contract, no physical involvement, just public appearances. In return, I will cover all medical costs for your father. You will also receive a payment once the year ends. It will be enough to start your life again." Grace stared at him. "I am not a thing you can hire," she said. "I know," Damian said, "but I think you are someone who understands sacrifice." He stepped closer. "I am offering a choice, one that could save someone you love." Grace looked away. She thought of the machines, the bills, the way her father smiled through pain, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something she could barely name. Hope. "I will think about it," she said. "You have until tomorrow morning," he replied. He nodded once. Then he left the room without another word. Grace stood alone. The painting was still there, watching her, the girl on the dock, still silent, waiting, just like her. Grace Holloway walked home in the drizzle, the sound of her heels tapping against wet sidewalks. The gallery lights had faded behind her. The city felt quieter than usual. Her mind, however, refused to settle. The words of Damian Carrington echoed inside her. "I need a wife, not a partner, not a lover. A wife. Legally, contractually." The idea was absurd, insulting, dangerous, and yet she could not stop thinking about it. Her apartment was on the second floor of a brick building that smelled of old books and burnt coffee. She climbed the narrow staircase, unlocked her door, and stepped inside. The space was small but neat. One easel stood near the window. A half-finished painting of her father rested on it. The brush marks were soft, unfinished. She made tea and sat at the table without turning on the lights. The rain outside grew heavier, like the sky itself was thinking. She thought of her father, of the quiet fear in his eyes, of the way he squeezed her hand that morning when he asked, "Will we be all right, kiddo?" She had said yes, but she had not known how. Now, maybe she did. But could she do it? Could she marry a stranger? She reached for her phone and typed his name into the search bar. Damian Carrington. founder and CEO of Carrington, one of the youngest billionaires in the industry, brilliant, private. Some said cold, others said ruthless. Several photos appeared. Damian standing next to self-driving car prototypes. Damian shaking hands with senators. Damian at a press conference, eyes narrowed, jaw set. Then she saw something else. A headline from 5 years ago, Carrington brothers split after legal dispute. She opened the article. Damian had co-founded Carrington with his older brother, Ethan Carrington. Ethan had been removed from the company after leaking sensitive information to investors. The company had nearly collapsed. Damian rebuilt it from the ground up. Grace leaned back in her chair. He knew betrayal. He knew loss. And he had still looked at her painting like it meant something. The next morning, Grace dressed in a gray sweater and black jeans. Her hair was tied back loosely. She walked into a coffee shop near downtown where Damian had told her to meet him. He was already seated at a table by the window. A mug sat untouched in front of him. He stood when she approached. "I did not expect you to come," he said. Grace sat down without a word. They sat in silence for a moment. Rain drizzled against the glass. "I do not take offers like that lightly," Grace said. "Nor do I make them," Damian replied. She looked at him closely. "You want a deal," she said, "but I need to know why." Damian nodded once, then folded his hands. "My board of directors is meeting in 3 weeks. There is a vote scheduled. Some believe I am too unstable to run the company." "Because you are single?" she asked. "Because they want someone they can control," he said. "A man with a family. A man who looks predictable. Safe." He glanced out the window. "They do not want someone like me." Grace watched his face. There was something about the way he said it. Quiet, detached. Almost tired. "And if you do not win this vote," she asked. "I lose Carrington," he said. "Everything I built." He looked at her again. "I am not asking for a performance," he said. "I am asking for presence. Appear beside me at events. Smile when cameras flash. Wear a ring. Nothing more." Grace stared at him. "You said no intimacy." She said, "That is correct. You will pay for my father's treatment?" She asked. "Yes." "You will put it in writing." "I already have," he said. He pulled a folder from his coat and placed it on the table. Grace did not touch it. She sipped her tea slowly. "And when the year ends," she asked. "We signed divorce papers." He said, "You walk away. $1 million in your name. No obligations. No strings." Grace looked out the window. The city moved around them. Taxis honked. People hurried by with umbrellas. The world did not know that inside this quiet cafe, a life was being decided. "What happens if I fall in love with you?" she asked suddenly. Damian did not flinch. "You will not," he said. "And if you fall for me," he smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "I do not fall," he said. Grace looked down at her hands. Her fingers were trembling. This was not about love. This was survival. She could not afford pride. Not when her father's time was measured in weeks. She reached for the folder. Her hand hesitated above it. Then she took it. "I want to read everything," she said. "Take your time," Damian replied. "I need until tomorrow," she said. "No," he said gently. "You need until this afternoon. The board meets tonight for a preliminary check. If we are doing this, you come with me." Grace stood slowly. She held the folder close to her chest. "I will call you," she said. He nodded. She left the cafe and walked into the rain without opening her umbrella. That night, she sat at the small table in her apartment. Her father's breathing echoed in her memory. Her own heartbeat felt too loud. The contract was clear: 1 year, no contact beyond what was required, full payment of all medical bills, privacy guaranteed. But the paper did not explain the real choice. It was not about a signature. It was about stepping into a life that was not hers. It was about pretending and surviving. And maybe, somewhere in that pretending, finding something she had not felt in a long time. She looked at her reflection in the window, then she whispered, "I think I am going to do this." And she was not sure if she was brave, or just desperate enough to believe. The ceremony lasted 13 minutes. There were no flowers, no music, no whispered promises, just a city clerk with tired eyes, a stack of legal papers, and a pen that clicked loudly in the silence. Grace Holloway stood beside Damian Carrington inside a narrow courthouse in downtown Seattle. Her hands were cold, her face was calm, her heart felt nothing. Not yet. Damian wore a dark navy suit. His tie was perfect. His shoes made no sound on the tile floor. He stood still, like he had done this before. She wore a cream-colored dress she borrowed from a friend of Elena's. It fit well enough. She had done her own hair, a simple twist at the back, no veil, no bouquet. They exchanged rings, gold, plain, cold. The clerk congratulated them without looking up. Someone stamped something. The door clicked closed behind them, and just like that, she was Grace Carrington. She did not feel like a wife. She did not feel different at all. Outside, a black car waited. The driver opened the door. Damian gestured for her to enter first. She slid into the leather seat and folded her hands in her lap. He joined her without a word. The ride was quiet. Seattle passed by in gray buildings and wet sidewalks. Grace looked out the window. No one on the street knew that a woman had just signed away a year of her life. They arrived at a private terminal. A small plane was waiting. Damian spoke to no one. Everything had already been arranged. A few hours later, they landed in Carmel, California. The sky was soft and golden. The wind smelled like pine and salt. The car took them along a narrow road that wound between cliffs and cypress trees. Finally, it stopped at a tall iron gate. It opened slowly. Grace stared at the house. It sat high above the sea. Glass and stone, modern but quiet, like it had grown out of the cliff itself. Inside, everything was still. The air smelled faintly of lemon and wood smoke. No photos, no clutter, just space. Damian led her upstairs. "This is your room," he said. It was larger than her entire apartment. A king-sized bed, a fireplace, a balcony that overlooked the ocean, a walk-in closet with clothes already in her size, a desk near the window, a shelf with new brushes and blank canvases. "I had someone bring your easel and the unfinished painting," he said. Grace turned toward him. "Why?" she asked. "I thought you might want it," he said. "That is all." She looked down. "Thank you," she said softly. Damian nodded. "My room is at the end of the hall," he said. "We will attend a dinner next week. My assistant will provide the details. Until then, rest. This place is yours to use as you like." Then he left, and the door closed behind him. Grace stood in the center of the room, listening to the silence. She sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress did not move under her weight. The sheets were crisp and cold. That night, she could not sleep. She walked out to the balcony. The sea moved far below, dark and endless. The wind touched her face gently. Somewhere inside the house, a floorboard creaked. She felt like she had stepped into someone else's dream. But it was real. In the morning, she explored. The kitchen was spotless. The fridge was full. A housekeeper came twice a week, but there were no staff living on site. Damien was gone. She found a note on the counter. It simply said, "Back late." The days passed. Grace painted, walked by the cliffs, read books she found in the quiet library, cooked simple meals for one. Damien came home late each night, sometimes after midnight. He never knocked on her door. They did not eat together. They did not speak unless necessary. But he was not cruel. He remembered how she liked her tea. He left her notes when groceries were delivered. Once, he replaced her broken brush without saying a word. It was not warmth, but it was something. On the fifth night, it rained, hard. The windows shook with wind. The power flickered once, then held. Grace sat in her room, trying to read. A knock came at the door. She opened it. Damien stood there. His shirt was wet at the shoulders. His eyes were darker than usual. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded. "You do not have to check on me," she said. "I know," he replied. He looked past her into the room, then back at her. "There is something I should have said before," he said. Grace waited. "I appreciate what you are doing," he said. "I know it is not easy." His voice was quieter now. "You may not believe it," he said, "but I respect you for it." Grace looked at him, and for the first time, she saw the edge of something behind his careful words. It was not affection, but it was not emptiness either. "Thank you," she said. He nodded once. Then he turned and walked down the hall. Grace closed the door. She stood there for a long time. Her fingers touched the edge of the wedding ring. It felt like a boundary, but also like a key. Morning light filtered through the white curtains in Grace's bedroom. The ocean breeze moved softly across the floor. Somewhere outside, waves crashed against the rocks. The sound had become familiar, calming. Like the hum of her father's oxygen machine once was. Grace Holloway, no. Grace Carrington now sat by the window with a cup of warm tea. She wore a soft, gray sweater. Her hair was still damp from the shower. A canvas rested on the easel in front of her, but the brush in her hand remained still. She had not painted in 3 days. The silence in the house no longer felt heavy. It had changed. It was not cold. It was expectant, like the pause between notes in a melody, not empty, just waiting. Damian Carrington had not spoken much since the night he thanked her. But something had shifted. He now came home before 10 most nights. He left his office door open. Sometimes she could hear him walking through the house at midnight. Once, she passed him in the hallway. He nodded. She nodded back. Nothing more. Then came the third Tuesday. Grace was in the kitchen, rinsing blueberries. The windows were open. The scent of salt and rosemary drifted in. Damien walked in. He paused when he saw her. "I did not know you cooked," he said. Grace shrugged. "I like to do things with my hands," she said. He nodded and opened the fridge. He took out a bottle of water and leaned against the counter. She looked at him. "You always drink water like that?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Like you are trying to avoid saying something," she said. He smiled. It was brief, but it was real. "I have not had much practice," he said. "Talking?" she asked. "Talking without purpose," he replied. She dried her hands and turned toward him. "You do not have to say anything," she said. "But if you do, it does not have to be perfect." He looked at her for a long moment. "Do you miss your father?" he asked. The question came without warning. Grace felt her breath catch. "He is not gone," she said, "but I already miss him." Damien looked away. "I understand that," he said quietly. Grace stepped closer. Did you lose someone? She asked. He nodded. My mother. He said, I was 21. She died in a hospital bed after 3 weeks of misdiagnosis. Grace waited. She was strong. He said, kind. She worked night shifts at a textile mill and read poetry to me before bed. When she died, the only thing I could think was, they never even saw her. Just a number. A woman with no insurance. His voice did not tremble, but his fingers clenched the bottle tightly. That is why you built Carrion Tech, she asked. He nodded. To control something, to create something that listens, that sees. Grace said nothing, because there was nothing to fix, just something to hold. They stood in silence, not awkward, not distant, just human. Later that day, Damian returned home early. He brought her a book of paintings by American coastal artists. No note, no explanation, just the book, left neatly beside her easel. That evening, she found him in the living room. He was looking out at the ocean. She sat down on the couch near him. Do you ever go down there? She asked. He shook his head. Too much time inside, he said. Too many reasons to stay guarded. She stood. Come with me, she said. He hesitated, but then he followed her. They walked down the stone path toward the beach. The tide was low, the sand cool beneath their feet. She took off her shoes. He kept his on. Grace walked ahead, lifting her arms slightly as the wind danced through her sweater. Damian watched her. You seem different out here, he said. I am just more me, she replied. She turned back toward him. What about you? She asked. Who are you? When no one is watching, he did not answer. Not yet. The next day, Damian knocked on her door before breakfast. I have a meeting in San Jose, he said. Would you like to come? Grace blinked. Why? It is a long drive, he said. And I thought you might want to see something different. She nodded slowly. I will go, she said. The drive was quiet at first, but not tense. Damian played soft jazz through the speakers. Grace leaned her head against the window. She watched the trees blur past. Then, out of nowhere, he said something. I like your laugh. Grace looked at him. I did not think I laughed much. You do, he said. Mostly when you think I am not listening. She smiled. That afternoon, he took her to an art exhibit in downtown San Jose. They walked side by side through halls of color and light. He asked her opinion on each piece. He listened. And when she pointed out a painting of a woman in the rain, standing beneath a dim street lamp, he said, That one feels like you. She looked at him. You see that I do now, he said. That night, back at the house. Grace stood on the balcony again. The ocean whispered below. She touched the edge of her ring, not to remove it, just to remember it was there. And then, for the first time, she wondered what would happen if she stopped pretending altogether. The morning began like any other. Grace Carrington stood on the kitchen balcony, holding a cup of tea. Below, the Pacific rolled quietly beneath low mist. The sky was pale, soft with cloud. Inside, the house was silent. Damian had already left for the office. His schedule had been busier since the last board meeting. Still, he left small gestures, a fresh bowl of fruit on the counter, a note with a time for dinner. Grace had grown used to the rhythm. There was comfort in it now. A quiet understanding between strangers who no longer felt like strangers. She stepped inside and reached for the newspaper, and there it was. A photo of her face, blurred but unmistakable. Beneath it, a headline. Carrington's Mystery Bride, Art or Arrangement, The mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the tile. She dropped to her knees. Her breath came fast. Her hands trembled as she picked up the pieces. She read the article. The tone was careful, but the message was clear. A well-known tech mogul had married a woman no one had ever heard of. A painter with no gallery contracts, no known patrons. A marriage too sudden, too quiet. The word contract was used, not confirmed, not denied, only suggested. A photo of her from the gallery night was included. She remembered that dress. She remembered that night. She remembered what she had agreed to. Her phone buzzed. It was Damian. Come to the study. Now. She walked quickly through the house. Her heart beat loudly in her chest. When she entered the room, Damian was standing by the window, arms crossed. He turned when she entered. You saw it, he said. Grace nodded. Who leaked this? She asked. He exhaled. I am trying to find out, he said. There were only 5 people who knew about the terms of our arrangement. She stared at him. You think one of them sold the story? I know it, Damian said. He walked to the desk and handed her a tablet. Emails, messages, screen captures. This has been building, he said. Subtle mentions. Whisper campaigns. Someone is trying to damage my name before the final board vote. Grace scrolled through the messages. Why now? She asked. Damian's jaw tightened. Because I am gaining support again, he said. And because they know you are my weakness. She looked at him sharply. I thought you did not believe in weakness, she said. He met her gaze. I did not, he said, until I realized what it meant to care. The room went quiet. Then Damian looked down. There is more, he said, and you deserve to know. He walked to a cabinet and took out a folder. Inside were old documents, articles, a news report, 5 years ago, a tech scandal. Grace flipped through the pages. Slowly, Ethan Carrington. His name appeared again and again. Damian spoke quietly. We started the company together. I built the system. Ethan managed investor relations, but he sold our early prototypes to a competitor. For money. For revenge. I never found out why. I just knew he'd disappeared before the trial. Grace looked at the photo of a younger Ethan. Same eyes, same smile, different man. He is back, she asked. Damian nodded. He has been operating behind the scenes, using other names, targeting people I work with, feeding stories to the press. Grace felt cold. Why would he care about me? She asked. Damian looked at her carefully. Because you are the part of my life I did not plan for, he said. Because you matter, and that makes you a target. Her breath caught. I do not want this, she said. I did not ask for it. I know, Damian said, but it is happening. He walked to the window. We have 2 weeks until the final board vote. If Ethan proves that our marriage is a fraud, I lose everything. But worse, he will do more. He will keep digging. He will come after anyone I let close. Grace stood in the center of the room. She felt as if the air had thinned. Then what do we do? She asked. Damian turned toward her. We act like nothing has changed, he said. We go to the events. We smile. We keep the story of us alive. He paused. But this time, Grace, I need you to understand. It is not just for show anymore. Grace stared at him. The weight of his words sat between them. She nodded slowly. I will do my part, she said. But I need something from you too. What he asked. The truth, she said. No more half answers. No more silence. Damian's face softened. You will have it, he said. That night. Grace sat on the balcony again. The stars were faint behind thin clouds. She watched the sea. She thought of her father. She thought of her face on a newspaper. She thought of Damian's voice when he said, "You matter." And for the first time, she realized something terrifying. She believed him. 3 days passed. Not a word. Grace sat alone in the studio. The ocean outside was restless. Waves crashed with more force than usual. The storm offshore had not reached land, but its presence was felt in the wind and in the house. Damian had left the morning after the article appeared. He said nothing beyond a tight nod. "I will be in San Francisco. Meetings." That was all. No time given, no plan, and no return since. Grace tried to paint. She tried to breathe, but the silence in the house was no longer expectant. It was sharp, heavy, like waiting for something to break. On the fourth night, she found herself in the library. She had never gone there before. Rows of old books lined the dark wood shelves. A fire had long since died in the hearth. She ran her fingers along the spines, thick law volumes, engineering journals, poetry anthologies. She stopped when she found one that looked different, a slim, brown volume, handwritten. She opened it. A name was written on the inside cover. Eleanor Carrington, his mother. The pages were full of letters, notes, quotes from her favorite poets, a sketch of a small boy with wide eyes. Grace closed the book, slowly. She felt the crack. That small, careful barrier inside her heart, it split, not fully, but just enough to let in something new. The next morning, she found a message on the kitchen counter. Back tonight. 8 p.m. She waited. The clock moved past 8, then 9. At 9:17, the door opened. Damian walked in, soaked with rain. He dropped his keys on the counter. Grace stood in the hallway, arms crossed. "You did not call," she said. "I got delayed," he replied. "That is not the point," she said. Damian looked up. There were dark circles under his eyes. His jaw was tight. Grace stepped forward. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. Damian walked past her. "I am tired," he said. Tired of what Grace followed him. He turned sharply. "This," he said. "All of this. The questions. The looks. The doubt in your voice every time I speak." Grace stood still. "I am not the one who disappeared," she said. "You wanted the truth." Damian snapped. "I gave it to you. And now we are in the middle of a storm. I did not start." She raised her chin. "I did not ask for this marriage," she said. "But I stayed. I have supported you. And now that it is inconvenient, you shut me out." He said nothing. His silence cut deeper than any word. Grace stepped back. "You promised no more silence," she said quietly. Damian looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something in his eyes that frightened her. Fear, not of her, of losing control, of feeling too much. "I cannot do this right now," he said. "I have to protect what we built." Grace stared at him. "What we built?" she echoed. "You mean the company, the image." Damian did not answer. "You said I mattered." She said, "You do." He said, "Then why am I always the last to know?" She asked. Damian ran a hand through his hair. He looked toward the window. The rain streaked the glass. "I grew up with a mother who gave until it killed her," he said. "Then a brother who stole everything I had. Every time I have trusted someone, they turned it into a weapon. I am not them," Grace whispered. "But I do not know who you are," Damian said. "Not really." The words hit like ice. Grace swallowed hard. "Then maybe you never tried," she said. She turned away, walked toward the stairs, stopped at the bottom step. "I read your mother's notebook," she said. "She wrote about light, about how it finds the smallest crack and refuses to leave." She turned back to him. I think you are afraid of light, she said, because it shows what is broken. Damien stood silent, his hands curled into fists at his sides. Grace went upstairs without another word. That night, she did not sleep. She lay awake listening to the wind and rain. She thought of her father, of the way he used to squeeze her hand twice. Once, for I am here, once for you are not alone. She missed that hand, missed that certainty. The next morning, Damien was gone again, but this time, he left nothing behind. No note, no time, not even a dish in the sink, just space, and silence, and distance that felt deeper than the ocean outside. The days moved slowly. Grace stopped checking the time. The sea no longer roared, it whispered, but the quiet felt different now, like the pause between breaths, like something waiting to begin again. She painted, not because she had to, but because her hands needed to move. The first piece was just color, no shape, no name. The second was a hand reaching through blue. By the third, her brush stopped shaking. She walked every morning down the trail behind the house. The path curved along cliffs, scattered with wildflowers and weathered stone. The fog stayed low some days. On others, it lifted just enough to reveal the endless water below. She liked the not knowing, liked the way the earth changed without permission. One evening, she returned to the house and found a letter by the door. Folded once, no envelope. Her name in simple handwriting. Inside were 3 words. I am sorry. No signature. She knew it was from Damien. She placed the note inside her mother's old journal, the one she carried with her through years of apartments, gallery rejections, and empty holidays. Then she sat in the old rocking chair by the window, and she let herself feel it all. Not just the pain, but the love, too. Love that arrived without asking. Love that scared them both. Love that made her stay even when everything else told her to run. The next morning, she visited the old bookstore downtown. The woman behind the counter smiled when she entered. You are the one who paints, the woman said. Grace nodded. Your work speaks, the woman added, even when you do not. Grace walked to the poetry section. She searched slowly and found the book, Mary Oliver Devotions. The page opened by chance. She read the first lines. Someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this, too, was a gift. She closed the book gently, then bought it. That evening, she sat on the deck and read aloud to the sea. She imagined Damien somewhere out there, sitting alone in his San Francisco office, staring at blueprints, or maybe just into the dark. She hoped he could hear her voice. Somehow, later that night, her phone rang. Not a call, just a message. Are you safe? She stared at the words. Typed slowly. Yes, I am painting again. A moment passed, then 3 dots. Good. You should. She smiled. It was not much, but it was something. The next day, she received an email from a private gallery in Sausalito. They had seen one of her early pieces in a collector's archive. They asked if she would consider showing a few new works. She stared at the screen for a long time, then replied with one word, yes. 2 days later, she packed 5 pieces, wrapped in linen, stacked in the back of an old borrowed truck. As she drove up the coastal highway, the sun broke through the clouds. For the first time in weeks, she turned on the radio. Music filled the cab. She sang softly, off-key, but her voice felt steady again. At the gallery, the woman in charge greeted her with warm hands and soft eyes. We want to show your series in the fall, she said. But something about this one, she pointed to the blue painting, Feels like now, Grace nodded. It is called threshold, she said. Later that night, in her hotel room by the bay, she opened her journal, and she wrote a letter. To no one. To herself. To him. She wrote, I used to think survival was enough. That just making it through meant I was whole. But I see now, wholeness is not silence. It is sound. It is color. It is memory and risk. And sometimes, it is choosing to love again, even when your heart still shakes. She closed the book, turned off the light, and slept, deeply, without dreams. The next morning, she drove back. When she reached the house, the first thing she saw was the black SUV parked in the driveway. Damian was sitting on the porch steps. He stood when he saw her. She did not speak. Neither did he. Then slowly, Grace walked toward him. She stopped just a few feet away and waited. Damian took something from his coat pocket, a folded canvas. He handed it to her. She opened it. It was a painting of her, standing by the cliffs, wrapped in fog, reaching out toward something not seen. I did not know how to say it, Damian said, so I painted it. Grace looked at the brush strokes. They were rough, uneven, but honest. She looked up. I see it, she said. Damian took a breath, and for the first time in days, his voice was steady. May I come in? He asked. Grace stepped aside. Yes, she said, but not to pick up where we left off. He nodded. I do not want that either. They walked into the house, not as a couple, not yet, but as two people who had broken apart, and now, maybe, could choose how to rebuild, together. The living room felt smaller than usual. Damian stood near the window. Grace remained by the bookshelf, between them. Silence settled like a question unspoken. Damian was the first to break it. I went to see Nathan, he said. Grace blinked. You found him? Damian nodded. He lives in a trailer outside Joshua Tree. Looks 20 years older than me, though he is younger. He did not even ask why I came, just poured 2 cups of coffee and waited. What did you say? Grace asked. I told him everything, Damian said, about the company, the contract. You... Grace stepped closer. And Damian met her gaze. He said I was still running, that even with everything I built, I never stopped living, like I was one step away from losing it all. Grace watched him. She heard pain behind the words, but also something else. Resolve. I told him I was tired. Damian continued. Tired of pretending that control equals safety. Tired of using money as armor. Grace folded her arms. And what did he say to that? Damian smiled faintly. He laughed. Then he asked if I ever tried just being honest with the one person I was most afraid of losing. His voice lowered. I knew he meant you. Grace exhaled slowly. She did not speak. Not yet. Damian walked to the fireplace. The truth is, I never expected you to stay, he said. Not after the contract ended. Not after everything that happened. I thought the moment the threat passed, you would run. Grace took a step forward. I stayed, she said. Even when you left. Even when it hurt. Damian nodded. I know that now. He turned. Grace, I do not want this to be a transaction anymore. No more terms. No more conditions. She watched him closely. Then what do you want? He hesitated, but only for a moment. I want the mornings, he said. The small ones. When you drink coffee before your eyes fully open. When you talk to your canvas like it can hear you. Grace's lips curved slightly. I want the quiet nights too, Damian added. When we read in the same room, but say nothing. When you fall asleep and I stay up just to listen to your breath. He stepped closer. I want the hard parts, he said. The doubt, the silence, even the fights, because they mean you are still here. He stopped, just an arm's length away. I want this life, he said softly. Not the one I built to protect myself. The one I never thought I could have. Grace looked down. Her fingers brushed the spine of a worn novel on the shelf. Then she met his eyes. Do you remember what I said the night I signed the contract? She asked. You said it felt like you were giving up more than a year of your life, he answered. Grace nodded. I was wrong. She said, I was giving myself a chance. A way out of the grief I carried. A way forward, even if it began with fear. She stepped closer. And now, Damian asked. Now, she said slowly, I have to know if this is love, not gratitude, not relief. Love? Damian reached into his coat pocket. He held out a simple envelope. Grace opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a legal release, terminating their original marriage contract, effective immediately. She stared at it, then looked up. No conditions, she asked. No expectations. Damian said, You are free. Grace folded the paper, placed it on the table, then walked to the window. The ocean was calm. Soft light filtered through the glass. I have loved you since the day you showed me your mother's notebook, she said, because I saw a boy who still wanted to be known, even after being abandoned. Damian said nothing, but I also saw a man afraid to be chosen, Grace continued, because love with no price tag feels like the biggest risk of all. She turned to him. So here is my truth. She walked closer. If I stay now, it is not because I signed something. It is not because you saved my family. It is because I choose this. She took his hand. This life, with all its mess, with all its heart. Damian closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. Then I choose it too, he whispered. They stood there, holding each other. No more contracts, no more safety nets. Just two people. And the truth between them. 6 months passed, and with them, the noise. There were no cameras, no contracts, no deadlines to chase, only mornings. Grace and Damien moved into a cottage just inland, where the fog rolled in slower and the silence stayed longer. The house was not grand. Just enough. 1 floor, big kitchen, windows that caught the light just right in the late afternoon. Grace hung her paintings along the hallway. Damian built her a studio out back, a small, sunlit space with skylights and a creaky wooden floor. I like the sound, Grace said one day, stepping across it barefoot. It makes it feel lived in. Damian smiled. He had learned to like small things, like the sound of her brushing her hair before bed, or the way she always tucked her left foot under her right leg while reading. Their days found rhythm. Breakfast on the porch, grocery lists scribbled on napkins, rainy afternoons spent fixing leaky pipes or painting old chairs, some nights. They sat in the living room, each reading their own book, feet tangled beneath the blanket. Other nights, they talked. About their mothers, about dreams they forgot they had, about things they were afraid to want. One evening, Grace walked into the kitchen and found Damian humming. He stirred soup on the stove. You never hum, she said. I do now. She leaned against the doorway. I never thought I could be this quiet. He added, Quiet can be full, Grace said. They shared a meal, and a silence that felt complete. One morning, Damian came in from the garden holding something behind his back. What are you hiding? Grace asked. He revealed a small pot. Inside, a green sprout. A lemon tree, he said. She laughed. You said you did not want anything high maintenance. I changed my mind. She took it from him. Gently, then we will grow it together. The tree sat on the kitchen windowsill from that day forward. Weeks turned into seasons. Autumn painted the trees outside gold and rust. Grace's hair caught the wind when she walked to the studio. Damian started teaching part-time at a local college, architecture students. He loved the way their eyes lit up when he showed them old sketches. One Saturday, after class, he brought home a framed photo. It showed an empty plot of land. Beside it, a plaque with two names, Helen Carrington, Arthur Holloway. Their parents. Grace stared at it. You bought it. It was going to be turned into another condo block. She touched the glass. I just wanted something that reminded us. He said, where we came from. She hung the photo near the front door. Visitors often asked if they were family. We are, Grace would say. One morning in December, Grace woke up earlier than usual. Damian was not in bed. She walked out to the porch. He stood there, barefoot, coffee in hand. The sky glowed pale pink. She stepped beside him. You are quiet, she said. I was thinking about the past. Damian replied, and how strange it is that it brought us here. Grace nodded. I used to believe healing would come like thunder. Sudden, loud, unmistakable. She looked at him. But it is not. It is a choice, Damian said, every single day. They stood together. The sun peeked over the horizon. Warm light spilled across their yard. The lemon tree, now taller, caught the glow on its glossy leaves. I do not know what the future holds, Grace said, but I know this life feels real. Damian looked at her. Then let us build it. Slow. Honest. Together. She reached for his hand. Together. That night, Grace took out her mother's old journal. She wrote one line. It began as a contract, but love does not follow terms. It simply grows. The letter arrived in spring, cream envelope, handwritten address. Grace found it tucked between seed catalogs and water bills. She opened it carefully. Inside was a formal invitation. You are invited to the opening of the Carrington Holloway Foundation for Family Resilience, in honor of Helen Carrington and Arthur Holloway. She stared at the words for a long moment, then folded the paper, slipped it into her sketchbook. That evening, Damian found her sitting on the porch, journal open, beside her. You read it? He asked. I did. He nodded. It is time, he said. They returned to the city. It had changed, or maybe they had. The noise felt louder, the buildings taller, the pace unfamiliar. But when they stepped into the old building on Lexington Avenue, something shifted. Warm light filled the space. Photographs lined the walls. Smiles, hands held, letters. At the center, a framed quote. Sometimes the strongest foundation begins with a crack. Beneath it, a plaque, in memory of those who sacrificed, in honor of those who rebuild. People gathered, families, counselors, artists, volunteers. A woman approached Grace with tears in her eyes. I read your story, she said softly. When I was going through my divorce, I thought I had failed, but you made me believe in second chances. Grace held her hand. You were never broken, she said, only beginning again, later. Damian took the stage. He wore a simple black shirt, no tie. I spent most of my life believing control was the only way to survive, he said. I built walls. I made deals. I avoided pain at all cost. He looked at Grace. But healing, he continued, is not an avoidance. It is in connection. It is in choosing to stay, even when it hurts. The crowd was silent. He paused. This foundation is not about us, he said. It is about everyone who ever thought love had to be perfect to be real. Everyone who grew up believing they were hard to love. He placed his notes aside. We are here to say you are not alone, and it is never too late to begin again. Thunderous applause followed. Grace stood near the window afterward, watching the reflection of a life she barely recognized. Damian walked up behind her. You all right? He asked. She nodded, but her eyes shimmered. I never thought, she said quietly, that something so hard could lead to something so beautiful. He took her hand. Me neither. They left the event hand in hand. No limo, no press, just the quiet night of the city they once feared. Back home. Grace watered the lemon tree. It had grown tall, small buds beginning to form. A few days later, she opened her journal again, wrote one last line under the old ones. Legacy is not what we leave behind. It is what we build together while we are still here. Their story never made headlines again, but it did something better. It made people believe in slow love, in honest beginnings, in healing that takes time, and in the kind of legacy built not from wealth or power, but from choosing love again and again, every day. Sometimes, life gives us choices we never wanted to make. Grace did not choose love. She chose duty. She chose sacrifice. And yet, from something that began as survival, a deeper truth slowly grew. Love is not always loud or grand. It does not always arrive with flowers or perfect timing. Sometimes, love hides inside quiet moments, in small kindness, in shared silence, in the courage to stay when leaving feels easier. This story reminds us that healing does not come all at once. It comes slowly, in tiny pieces, through forgiveness, through trust, through showing up every single day. For those who have lived long enough to know loss, this message is clear. It is never too late to begin again, to build something real, to love without fear. Even when life feels broken, something beautiful can still take root. All it needs is a little light, a little time, and the willingness to try again. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this story touched your heart, please click like, share it with someone who may need hope today, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story that matters. Your support helps us keep telling stories that heal, connect, and inspire. We are grateful you are here.